Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion. It is July 4th, 2021. Happy 4th of July to you. Let's talk about Tropical Storm Elsa. A very confusing and annoying storm for sure, but we got to talk about it. There are issues to still deal with, impacts down in the Caribbean today, namely in Jamaica and parts of southeast Cuba there, but eventually moving up towards maybe the Bahamas over here, possibly, and certainly South Florida and beyond. You can see the Keys there in extreme South Florida at the top of the satellite extent here, courtesy of the weathernerds.org site. So what do we see? Well, there's Jamaica right there, and this band of very heavy rain coming into Elsa, center of circulation up here somewhere, is producing a lot of rainfall and a lot of lightning. And let me just skip ahead to this tweet real quick here from Jake Karstens. He is a PhD candidate down at Florida State, so a meteorologist already, now working on that PhD, so that's respectable. Jake's researching tropical convection, hurricane formation, so Jake knows what he's talking about. Now, none of us know everything, so let's make that very clear. We're always learning. All right, that being said, what can we learn from this? Well, Jake talks about that Elsa has been weakening and certainly been more disorganized in the last several hours, despite what we see on satellite. But a combination of frictional convergence and terrain-induced lift, we call that orographic lift, has caused persistent deep convection and heavy rain over much of Jamaica. And we can see that in here in this nice animation that he has put together. We'll take it full screen. And so what we've got is this very persistent southerly flow coming across Jamaica here. Jamaica is a big landmass in the middle of the Caribbean relative to the flat ocean down there. And so you squeeze out that moisture as it goes across. And you see all that uplift there, that bubbling that's going on? That is leading to some very heavy rain. If we go back to the animation here, the visible shot, yes, all of this is moving right on shore, south to north, over Jamaica. So it's not wind, probably very little in the way of wind down there. And it's not storm surge, that's for sure. It's very heavy rainfall, and that is an impact. I try to hammer that as much as I can. Rainfall can be deadly, especially if there's too much at too short an interval of time. And you've got the streams, the creeks, the rivers down there, those guts as they call them, gullies, whatever. Different people in the Caribbean have different names for them, but those fill up very quickly, and you get that runoff rapidly going downhill. Gravity takes over, and you have some really big problems, and that'll spread into Cuba and beyond over the next several hours. Now, you look at the satellite animation here and you think, well, that's a pretty healthy looking system. I can clearly see the rotation in there. It's got the bands. What's the deal? Well, recon has flown in, and they are telling us that it's not nearly as organized as we see on satellite. The low-level center is not very well defined at all. A lot of what we're seeing here is apparently in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. So its engine is not really intact. Elsa is definitely going through some growing pains here, if you will, as it has transitioned from being a hurricane a day or so ago, and that extremely fast motion through the Caribbean that it did, and now ending up here. It's still got some work to do, and only a short window of opportunity to do so before it runs over this landmass over here, and that is mostly the length of Cuba. So, speaking of that, where do we go from here? Well, the computer models have been interesting to say the least over the past 5 days or so. I think we can all agree to that. The GFS leading the charge that this was going to develop and probably be a hurricane up in the Florida Peninsula at some point. And then all of a sudden, I guess it was, Friday morning or something like that, it backed off of that. And the Euro has never shown much, but it's crazy. It's all that has been. Today, like I'm going to show you in a minute here, I'll tease it for you, the Euro wants to play ball all of a sudden. It's like, you got to be kidding me. So I'll show you what I mean in a minute. It's still like a real head scratcher. I don't know what's going to happen. And sometimes it's okay to say that. And, it's why you got to pay attention and be ready to react to whatever comes your way. It could be one big squall that drops a ton of rain on your area, causing flooding. You could get a hurricane, possibly. I mean, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. And a lot of different scenarios in between, absolutely. So what do we have here? Well, first, this is the outline of the front. cold front that came through. The air mass up on the north side of the front is quite pleasant, if I may say so myself. South of the front down here, it's still very juicy, lots of energy. And then right in here is the energy associated with Elsa. And it's barely detectable in the modeling here. This is basically right about now valid at 18Z. We're only about an hour after that. You see my little time clock right there? It's 2:55 p.m. So we're coming up on 19Z. So this is about an hour off, if you will. And you can see the whole envelope of energy down here associated with Elsa, just not very healthy looking in the modeling. And that basically mimics what we're seeing here in satellite for the most part. Although you see this again and you go, well, that looks a lot more organized than what the GFS shows. You know, hey, the recon says otherwise in terms of it is not very well organized. Nevertheless, let's see what the GFS shows here, shall we? Moving on out into time, this is this evening when a lot of people are getting ready to go out and do fireworks on the East Coast. Elsa and all of this just mess of energy down here coming over Cuba, moving its way over Cuba. So see as it kind of crawls along there slower, spread out, starts to affect the Keys tomorrow afternoon with some squally weather, onshore flow down there. You know, if you got small craft or want to go down to the beach, probably not a good idea. Any of these little streamers that you see coming up in here, you know, all of that's vorticity, that's energy. So yes, it'll be a messy, rainy, squally kind of day, and that's an impact. Is it a hurricane? Of course not. But it's still an impact, and people need to be mindful of it. Lots of people traveling, and whatever. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But you see what happens. The GFS is basically like a mess. Like, what is this little lobe of energy right there coming in towards Tampa Bay? You know, and then you got this broader area of vorticity up here. I mean, what the heck? It is really, really bizarre. So finally, Wednesday morning, something comes ashore up there in the Florida Panhandle, and then it just works its way up into the southeast, and that's that. All right, now let's jump over to the HWRF, the Hurricane Weather Research Forecast Model. This is developed specifically for hurricanes. And move this out into time. A very small system comes up over Cuba, not much to it. You know, pressure's in the low 1,000 millibar range, passing through the Keys with some squally weather, as you can see down there. 1,007, 1,008, so forth and so on. And really not much to it as it works its way up towards the Big Bend area near Cedar Key on Wednesday afternoon. Most of the weather off to the east. Not an impressive scenario, to say the least, from the HWRF here. We'll back it up and show you what I mean. See, it's just not. So, like, why? What happened? It's just not seeing favorable conditions. But then, and this is what just drives me mad, because I want to know, I got a vehicle ready to go down there if I need to, set up cameras and an anemometer, and we want to test a few things that we're trying this year. We have people that like to watch the live coverage if it's going to happen. They don't necessarily enjoy having the power out or losing their house. I mean, who likes that? But if it's going to happen, you want to trust in the people who are going to cover it, and that's what I do for a living. So trying to figure out when I'm going to leave, where I'm going to go. When I show you this, you see what it's like. It's like, come on. I don't even live down there. But it's not going to matter because, well, let me just show you. So here's the initial, and you know, it's kind of messy. There's the initial vorticity signature at that 5,000 foot level that I keep telling you all about. And again, if it doesn't look healthy there, nothing else matters. That's the bottom line. Really, you know, if it's not healthy down to the surface, you could have a great mid-level rotation. But if there's no definable and well-defined low-level center, show's over. It's just not happening. It's not aligned. So this is the initial. This is 24 hours out. That is a little bit more of a reflection than we have seen from the Euro in a while. This would be tomorrow morning, Monday morning, as it sits over Cuba there, just south of the Florida Straits. Finally, 24 hours later, it's out just to the southwest of the Florida coast. Tuesday morning, nothing too potent for sure. That's not the healthiest vort signature I've ever seen, but it's still, I mean, look, let's just compare. That's 12Z Tuesday. Let's back this up to 12Z Tuesday, shall we? So here's the GFS. Here's the Euro. Yeah, let me get rid of this just so I can go back and forth easier. Okay, well, that's disagreement. All right, so let's go another 24 hours on the Euro, 72. What the heck is this? That is a more potent system. It's not particularly strong. And if we move the GFS out that time frame to Wednesday morning, it's a pretty big difference in location and intensity, as you can clearly see. Finally, on the Euro, another 24 hours. What? I mean, I live right there in Wilmington, North Carolina. So what the heck is that? I mean, I could just stay here. Oh, I mean, you have to be kidding me. I mean, this again with this disagreement. Finally, it starts to really explode, if you will. That might be I don't know, it's pretty impressive and compared to what it is now. But yeah, it tries to strengthen on its way out. What in the world is going on? That's 120 hours. The GFS at 120 is nope, not even close. I mean, look, comparing the two. So let's go back on the Euro and let's play what if. So what if it does this? Well, this says Mark needs to get in his truck and leave tomorrow. And it says people along the Florida coast there are going to experience potentially some tropical storm conditions. And it's not just about what's in the center right here, this vorticity center. Everything around it, impacts are all around there. So what is the bottom line? What's my advice? Well, first of all, it's hurricane season, so you should be ready anyway. But in all seriousness, this is a really hard one to figure out. And we're seeing that even in the National Hurricane Center forecast discussions. They use these terms: uncertainty, greater uncertainty than usual, significant uncertainty. When you see those sprinkled in there, that's their way of telling you these long, drawn-out videos like I'm doing that shows you that uncertainty. They only have a few words that they can, I mean, again, they're constrained. They do these great Facebook briefings, which are awesome, but the text products are fairly limited and straightforward, right to the point, and it tells you what's going on, what the forecaster is seeing in a very succinct manner. When you expand that out and want to understand sort of the mechanics of it, this is it. And it's very confusing and very hard to know exactly what's going to happen. You have climatology against development, but a lot of things for development, the vigorous nature to which Elsa has held on all this time, despite the climatologically unfavored part of the season, so forth and so on. So yes, in Florida, I mean, what's it going to hurt? Just be ready. You might have some strong wind, some heavy rain, a lot of people traveling, so I think my biggest piece of advice is be extremely careful if you're traveling. You know people that are down there. Send them an email, a text, or whatever. Send them a link to this video. And just say, look, be aware. It might not be the hurricane that we were thinking could be heading that way, but still, very heavy rainfall can lead to problems, flash flooding, ponding on the roadways. You got those interstates down there. And we know, tragically, what happens when you have a lot of rainfall over roadways. Remember in Alabama there, more than 10 people were killed because of the rainfall from Claudette on I-65, I believe, near Greenville, Alabama. And this is a very serious thing. Impacts are what you need to think of and wonder about, not, is it going to be a hurricane? Because if it's not going to be a hurricane, I don't care. If you think like that, then you miss the whole point. You really do. Because there's a lot more to these than just a hurricane and 74-mile-per-hour wind or higher and all that stuff, or categories. You need to be thinking, how will this affect me, and what am I going to do about it so that I am not negatively impacted to the best of my ability to prevent that from happening. All right? So I will obviously stay on top of it. I'll be tweeting about it when relevant. I do like following other people and retweeting them sometimes. Again, there's a vast world out there of knowledge, and I like it, especially on Twitter, that we can share that knowledge from people like Jake, like I just showed you. So that being the case, I am on Twitter. There's a little birdie down there. HurricaneTrack. We're on Facebook. HurricaneTrack. That's the brand name. That's the logo. You know it by now. And if you want access to more, including our original documentaries, a really awesome podcast series, our live cameras, our interactive tracking map, a live chat. Really, we have all of that? It's incredible, isn't it? Yes. It is crowdfunded, our HurricaneTrack Insider site, through Patreon, a website and an app that connects you with us, Patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. The link to it's in the description of pretty much all of our videos now for the last couple of years. All right, you guys have a great rest of your 4th of July. Be careful out there if you're setting off explosives. I'm going to be doing that tonight with my family, and they are the legal kind from here in North Carolina, so it's all good. Social media these days, they'll burn you if you're not careful, pun intended. And then I'll see what's going on, and maybe I get in my truck and leave tomorrow, maybe I don't. I will be back in the morning, though, with a quick update on the audio podcast, Hurricane Season, the podcast, on Apple and Spotify and all that. And then I'm probably going to do a morning video discussion as well. All right? All right. Have a great rest of your 4th. I'm Mark Sutta. Thanks for listening and watching. We'll talk about it some more tomorrow.